Good evening, or good night, actually. It's Joyful Hermit. This is just a late night after midnight update, and it's a reminder that God has everything in our lives in an organized flow. I had mentioned previously that I had heard from one daughter that the other daughter didn't want anything to do with me or this, quote unquote, this. Um, my health situation, I assumed. I didn't know what. Didn't know what was going on. And because I'd talked with that daughter when I told her first about my health problems, before I knew much more, other than that it was very serious. And she was very lovely on the phone and concerned. And then about 4 or 5 days later, the other daughter mentioned that she had called right after and said she didn't want anything to do with it or with me or something to that effect, or it was to that effect. Um, but I've been in terrible pain and undermedicated, which is another situation that I had mentioned, and have had to just totally let go and not be concerned about the medication or that what I'm taking is not particularly good for the kidneys, but not having, just having a situation with the pain doctor, which was unexpected. So our life is in a total flux of really trial and error and goodness versus evil and um, chaos versus order. It just goes that way, and we've got to stay in God's flow and just keep counting on God, keep praying, keep giving ourselves over to God fully, and not pay too much attention to the temporal world and the ups and the downs and the trials that go on, and try to be very understanding of other people. And then also, as I'm learning, to take some things with a grain of salt. So I had texted this oldest daughter and went into my paranoia routine because it hasn't been good as with my adult children as it was when they were young. Um, there's just been more misunderstanding, and I think often on upsets as our adult children individuate out from us also. We've got to adapt to that, and they do it in different ways. And then my life is fraught with what I consider demonic interference. I have a lot of bad things that happen, and also just goofy things that disrupt or cause me hardships. And then there's, of course, the very good with God. So it's this pendulum swinging back and forth. And I'm pretty well adept at recognizing that the devil is messing with me, except I think I get hung up when it's my children, because the devil knows I love them dearly. And even though I let go and try to stay clear and not interfere unless involved, or Christmases and birthdays or special occasions, I try to keep in touch, but one of them isn't particularly communicative, but has a very high stress job. They all do, really. But the one in particular, and very busy family. And then the other one is also now very busy. I mean, they all are. Though the son has formally cut me off. I mean, just doesn't communicate at all, and was angry with me when he did that about a year ago this week, or the end of this week. So that's not changed. I have reached out off and on, and there's no change in that situation. So that I've had to accept and just pray and realize it probably will be ongoing. Who knows? Um, I'm not I'm not as upset as I used to be about it. Not really at all. Now I just accept it and realize that it's maybe for the best in some reasons. I don't know. And then when I got this other conversation, that upset me. And I then realized, well, the person is my executor, my trustee of the trust. And I don't have a lot, but what I do have is in trust. And I set that up early on when the children were young, um, because of my spine condition and all, and being a single parent. But I realized I need to know if this is true. So I texted, but didn't get a response. Then over the weekend, I texted the son-in-law, and he did respond yesterday. Responded in the morning and said he wasn't sure what was going on, that he didn't know much about any of this, and maybe asked the siblings, my other two children. Well, I wrote back and explained the one hasn't spoken to me in about a year, and the other one is the one that said that this call came or something. So I today got back in touch with, and I went through it all with the son-in-law, of all these things that signaled to me that I had upset my other daughter or something, or being around me triggers her or some things like that. I'm trying to piece together things and flaws that I've had, or errors, or um, the pain that they grew up with, all these things that I carry with me, and don't feel like I'm a very good mother, obviously, by the signals. Um, although friends have said they do love you in their own way. And I've accepted that I wasn't the kind of person that most kids would want as a parent. Being a mystic, and which I didn't know until they were, well, the little one was very, very little, but and strange things that would go on, just my perceptions that I get and the things that happen. And I used to thought everybody perceived in these ways, or had dreams or visions, or didn't even know they were called visions or whatever, but learned this after I became Catholic, had a vocabulary at least to use, and verified, yes, and yes, I'm a mystic, and, not a big deal, nothing like that, but it's different. And my children would tell me at a certain age, each of them, when they turned about 11 or 12, 11 really, started to notice, compared to their other friends' moms, that I was different. And kids want normal. And I was different also physically. I couldn't get on the floor, or, roll around with them or be active with them. I was always in pain, and then I'd have the pain sieges, and the eldest in particular had a lot of responsibility, and the second one down did also, and would take care of their little brother when I'd be laid up for several days to a couple of weeks, and they were frightened at times that they would lose me and have to live with their dad, and then we moved when I had financial issues. So it was a hard, hard childhood for them. Until really, I think we got to the Midwest, but now as adults, I think they question, why did we go there? They've sort of blocked out why we had to leave the other state and get 2,200 miles away. So I asked the daughter that had told me, about this phone call she'd had and that message. And she says, well, no, it was only, she didn't want anything to do with the house. This other daughter had offered to try to buy my house so that I could stay in here and live here until I die, which would be wonderful if I didn't have any other situation. And in fact, she would try to move in when I got bad. But she does work long hours and she travels. But she said she would try to find people to come then, even. So, a very wonderful offer. We're not sure if she can financially do it, or would I said if you can work out something with your siblings. Definitely the one sister. The son, I'm not sure what's going to happen. I don't know if there'll be a consequence for him just cutting me off. Dr. H says somebody who's 40 years old and totally cuts off his mother like this, doesn't invite her to his wedding, cuts her away from that. I had offered to participate, to help financially, even to do whatever with my former husband as the parents of the groom was that he wanted. That was our duty, evening before activities or whatever. And he refused. My son refused, and way back when he was still speaking to me over a year ago, and I even offered, couldn't I buy his clothing he would wear that day, or the bride and groom photo album, do something special. No, no, mm-mm. And then a year ago this week, he cut off totally, got angry with me over something, and has been off and on getting angry with me, sort of flip out and have temper and say very, very painful things. So Dr. H said somebody who's that age, who cuts off his mother, recognizes that that means he's also not interested in anything from the estate. And he probably isn't. I don't know. So it would be between my two daughters then. And what my daughter explained, and she apologized to me today, saying, I'm sorry for the confusion of the phone call message. No, it was just that this oldest daughter didn't care about the house. Told her sister, do whatever you want to do or can do. I don't have an interest in the house, was the intent of the conversation. And my oldest daughter was very concerned about my health. So I also had it totally mixed up. Totally, totally thought saying I didn't want anything to do with it. Or I thought she said with me. But God knows I am way under medicated for having arachnoiditis pain and kidney pain. So, and whatever's wrong with my lymph system, my lymphocytes and other bad numbers. But it reminded me, so I realized, having found the notebook that had the notes on the angels and going over those in the recent video, how God has our individual private lives all planned out. Even what we're going to learn and when we're going to learn them, what we'll be reminded of. What we need to do is just be aware of the nudges of the Holy Spirit and of our guardian angels. And I had been talking about that angel book I'd read and finding the notebook. And then I did. And it was the right timing. Because now I realize I need to call upon, especially that second hierarchy of angels. I need the upset in my family dealt with. The devil is behind the upset. And it is true the oldest daughter she didn't respond to me. I've texted her and she once said years ago that she's not a very good communicator. And I do understand her job, which is a lot of responsibility and high tension kind of high stakes kind of work, and very mental. Uses a lot of intelligence with that and focus. So she's on doing texting, email, computer all day long, working out these big major corporation issues and technical issues and software issues, things like that. So I think she maybe just shuts off her phone at night. I don't know, or doesn't want to deal with it. And I know she doesn't want to think about the past. So I went into that mode, though, of apologizing and I'm so sorry, for any of my errors and on, when I thought the message was she didn't want anything to do with me or my ailment now. And then, of course, I thought, well, who's going to handle the estate now? And asked her to let me know. Haven't heard. I apologized again today and said, that her sister had apologized for the confusion of the phone call content. And I explained I'm undermedicated, not thinking well. And that's what happens to me when it's too much pain. And that's another reason why I also need to ask the angels to help my pain doctor. And don't be stubborn, please. But I know it's hard being a pain doctor and on staff. All these people coming for medications. Granted, still quite a few who go to pain doctors who don't need it or should be willing to learn other techniques, as I have had to learn and wanted to learn. I've tried all kinds of techniques, and my main one is love of God and prayer for other people, keeping my mind off self. But when you get very ill and the pain is high and makes you crazy, where you lose control over rational, that makes it very, puts you in a different category. So somehow I really had things twisted around, but the message wasn't clear either. I do recall what was said, and that's why the other daughter apologized. I'm grateful. Texted the son-in-law, sorry, big mistake, apologies, got the phone call wrong, and assuming everything's okay now, and love you all. But I did express to him how much I miss not being able to visit. My daughter hasn't wanted me to visit. It'll be 4 years this coming February, next month, and since I've seen them. Well, I saw the daughter when she came for my knee surgery. She was here. I was having a great time with her. Thought everything was going great, except I got emotional the day after surgery and was talking about how upsetting it was that the son had cut off from me. Her brother had cut off, and why. But that delved into some of her dad and what he had done regarding a grandson. So I had a mess with that recently, or a year ago. But I wasn't letting the Holy Spirit lead me. I was in emotion. And after surgery, you can be that way. I should have known better. But I realize I do have this guilt that I bear of wishing I could have been a normal mother for them because they wanted that. Well, any kid does. And also that things hadn't been so chaotic and all the suffering and my financial issues. And they know it's not my fault, but it gets wearing on top of all of their trials in life. They have their own adult issues and problems and work and children and their children's issues and friends and all that goes into normal lives, very busy lives out in the temporal world where they are called. That's where God has them with their careers and their families. And none of them are mystics, so um, it's hard then when their mother has these bizarre things happen. I guess I haven't talked much about the neighbor woman that I had to get a protective order and her husband, an adult son. They kept threatening my life and did property damage, and she would watch anytime I would go out. This was in a nice house that I could have stayed in the rest of my life. Nice small little house, easy to maintain. I had beautiful gardens there, and unfortunately had to use trees as screen to protect myself from the neighbor. But got a protective order, but then they were going to go ahead and do a lawsuit when the protective order was running out, because they never stopped harassing me, and the police said, you're really just going to have to move, get as far away as you can, because they're not going to quit on you. And it got very bad at times where a detective got involved, a postal inspector. I had to go to court to get help to be protected, and then the protective order is only about as good as whatever deputy receives the call. There were so many files of the offenses that they had done, death threats and different things, that, they didn't spend time going through it. They would just come out, interview each of us. And I often didn't fare well when there were 3 adults in their house and me. And when you have a mentally ill person, paranoid schizophrenic was what the lady was, probably not medicated. And my children wanted me out of there. They were worried about me, and that was an ordeal from them. They finally said they couldn't let the grandchildren come. It was too unsafe. So, nice, average subdivision, but I just landed next door to evil. And I was even warned in a dream when I could have gotten out of the house, out of following through getting it built. Or I think they had just staked it. I could have easily gotten out, lost $1,000 instead of all that I lost. And the awful aspects of it, living like that next to someone like that, turned the subdivision against me until the subdivision figured it out. But that was about the time deputies said, you got to get out, you got to move, because they're going to come for you again once the protective order's up. And so that was an issue. There were other things that would happen even here. One of the neighbors sexually harassed me terribly 2 years ago. I had to go to the police. I'm not to communicate at all with them. And I have 3 things I have to say if they speak to me. And they have tried off and on to re-engage. And my oldest daughter wanted me to get cameras for that, so I'd have proof or feel more protected. But so that was that problem. Oh no, another neighbor thing. I had a issue on the island with a neighbor who was trying to take. I had just gotten the property and was trying to claim adverse possession, take part of the property for free. That had to be dealt with, and that caused a big family stir because I just left the other problem. So some priests have said, and other people, I'm a lightning rod for trouble. The devil beats on me using the temporal world to do so. And it upsets my children, my adult children, because they care, but it's an added burden, an added worry for them. And then they wonder, well, did I do something to cause any of these things? And they know, no, I didn't, but oh my, here we go again. And there's just so many things that it trouble with the HOA here, who were pressuring me. I couldn't get one thing done out front, and I was gardening when I could, but I could only work a couple of hours. That was back when I was better. Now I don't at all. But my pain doctor and my neurosurgeon had messages for them, and the law was very clear. If someone's disabled, HOA cannot pressure, give deadlines, or harass. And they were harassing. They were focused on me, too much so. And I had to say and tell them what would happen and what my pain doctor had to say. Leave her alone. So they stopped, and they understood then that I had this arachnoiditis. And so that got cleared up, but it was a problem that needed to be solved. So just lots of things that it just seems like one thing after another. But I've got to call upon the angels, and I've got to stop my feeling guilty that I wasn't a good enough parent. I tried so hard. I did my best. And I have to also verify things before I make sure I'm getting messages right. Because it wasn't at all that my eldest daughter wanted nothing to do with me or this or my sickness. So trying to get that straightened out now, that I thought that was the case, and was going into my paranoid routine of how sorry I was that I hadn't been a better mother, or any ways in which I wasn't sensitive. So I have lots to learn still, and lots of praying to do, and calling upon God for help, and utilizing now these angels who can be so helpful to us. So that's my little midnight little sharing of really placing everything in God's hands, and be very patient to get messages straight and clear, and I think just holding still, especially when I'm way under medicated again. I never thought this would happen to me again, where I would be under medicated. And it's harder when you're older to have pain. So we'll continue on and place all of our life situations in God's providence. And it did maybe, I'm counting on the positive of this situation, of my messed up interpretation of messages, of, as I told my son-in-law in the text, that I'm not on earth to cause anyone upset or bad memories or anything like that. And I'm just hoping that we will all come together in love and closeness for whatever time I have left on earth. Could be a while yet. Couple years, I don't know, whatever. Maybe a little longer. But that we are close to one another. So I'm going to ask the angels to help. The ministering angels of the second hierarchy, to confound any evil or upset, for the virtues to create miracles and signs of goodness in my family and amongst each other, for harmony and for cessation of any type of conflict, of even of the siblings, or of me, of anything of the past, a total cleansing of anything that was upsetting to them. So and I realized that all of these, even finding the notebook with the talk about the angels in them, the information, it was all just in the right timing, from last Friday night to this morning, 4 days, less than 4 days, say Saturdays, yeah, just 3 days of time passed, but of the how God put everything in order in a beautiful way, and in a way that I needed to have correct information myself. And so anyway, I'll close off, but it's just a reminder of how it's just best to go with God's flow and to not knee-jerk or misunderstand messages or things like that. So that's all I have to say tonight. My little midnight, post-midnight, now it's 1 o'clock, message is utilize what God gives us to help us and to wait upon the Lord and get clarification for things as best we can. And then trust in God that whatever happened will work out even better. That the communication that was involved on my part, trying to sift through all this and to apologize, will elevate us all and bring us closer. So that's it. God bless His real presence in us, and let us keep striving to learn God's pure love, which takes the gifts of the Spirit and the fruit of the Spirit to really learn pure love. And it will happen for us. I'm convinced of that. We will learn this. I plan to. I pray to. Have a beautiful night's sleep and holy dreams.